In this video, we're going to learn about the circulatory system. As we know, there are 11 main organ systems in the body. So far, we've studied the digestive and the respiratory system. Today, in this lesson, we're going to focus on the circulatory system. As usual, you can watch the preview videos before actually watching the main lesson. And of course, you can use the handout and fill out the handout using our main video. So the circulatory system, it's an organ system that's composed mainly of blood vessels, and the heart. It has two main jobs. The first job is essentially to deliver important nutrients all over the body cells. So delivering nutrients, oxygen, other particles like hormones to all the body cells. So here you can see blood flowing through a vessel. Here's a body cell, the nutrients go in. The second important part is taking waste out of the body. So the cell will give waste that it's accumulated to the blood, and the blood can deliver it to the proper area to get rid of it. For example, to the lungs to breathe it out if it's CO2. So there's delivering things throughout the body, and then there's also removing waste from the body. And specifically, we're talking about nutrients and oxygen to deliver to the cells, and then carbon dioxide as a waste, but there's more than just carbon dioxide as waste that's delivered. So the main organs of the circulatory system are the heart, which is the part that pumps the blood vessels, which contain the blood. They are arteries, veins, and capillaries. We'll talk more about those as well. And also the blood, which is not really an organ, it's actually a connective tissue. So we'll start by describing the major components, focusing on the heart. The heart is a muscular organ, and it basically squeezes blood so it can pump the blood all over the body. It has cardiac muscle tissue in it, which is involuntary. That's why you don't have to think about pumping your heart. It will do it by itself without you thinking about it. There's essentially specialized cells called cardiac muscle cells, and they have a lot of branches on them in order to allow the many muscle cells to connect and to coordinate in the heartbeat that they have to do. So that's just a bit more about the structure of the heart to get some more specialization in there. You can see here a picture of the cardiac muscle under the microscope, so you can see what the structure looks like. And this is a labeled picture of the heart. You can see blood vessels coming off of it, and you can see other pieces of the heart as well, and we'll briefly describe those pieces in some detail soon. Then we have the blood vessels. The blood vessels carry the blood in the circulatory system. There's three main types of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries. The arteries, they are usually the thicker blood vessels, and they contain higher pressure blood. So high pressure blood. The veins, they are less thick, and they carry low pressure blood. Now, what's important is not so much the color here. Students often think that arteries carry oxygenated and veins carry deoxygenated. While there is a little bit of truth to that, it's not really the full truth. They can carry other types of blood. It doesn't just have to be oxygenated here and deoxygenated here. In reality, it's the direction of blood flow. So arteries carry blood away from the heart. So an artery away and towards other parts of the body. Veins carry blood back towards the heart. So arteries away, veins towards the heart. And capillaries, so as we see these blood vessels branch out, they're the very, very thin blood vessels that surround important structures in the body, like alveoli, villi in the intestines, for example. And they're very thin, and they're basically responsible for a lot of the exchange. Nutrients come in here, CO2 leaves here, oxygen comes in here, so that's where most of the exchange happens here. Then we'll talk about the blood briefly. So the blood is not an organ, but it's more a connective tissue. It's found within the blood vessels, and it's made up of three different specialized cells. There's actually two main components to the blood. There's a cellular part and a plasma part. The cellular part makes up 45% of the blood, and that's the specialized cells that make it up. The plasma part is a liquid part of the blood. It makes up about 55% of the blood. That's basically like water, nutrients, proteins, and fats and other things. So lots of plasma in there. And then these are the main cells that are found in the blood. So the red blood cell, those are basically the cells that are responsible for carrying oxygen. The reason they can do that is because their structure allows for it. They're thin in the middle. They have a lot of hemoglobin. which is basically like a magnet for oxygen, and they're very smooth and flexible so they can go through small blood vessels pretty easily. The white blood cells, they're over here. They have a lot of lysosomes, and their main job is to basically act as immune cells. They break down bad things that enter the body. And they're also very flexible, so they can move their membranes to grab bacteria that come in and swallow them and digest them with the lysosomes. And then finally you have platelets. Platelets are little fragments of cells that help to form scabs. So if you get cut, you start bleeding, you don't want to bleed out, so a scab will form over the cut in order to prevent your body from losing too much blood. And so here we saw the blood being made of two main components. Within the cellular component, there's three types of cells, and we saw the structure and function of each of those types of cells. So we're going to take a look at the flow of blood throughout the body, focusing on the heart, the lungs, and then the rest of the body. Okay, and then we'll go and we'll label the heart in a bit more detail, but this is the main aspect I need you to know here. So I'll explain this a few times and add details as I go through every time. So here we have the heart. This is the right side of the heart, and this is the left side. So we'll start in the right side of the heart, where the blood is labeled as blue because there's little oxygen in it. You need more oxygen there. Remember that there's no such thing as blue blood. It's just like that in pictures. So the heart's going to squeeze the blood out of the right side, and then the blood's going to travel to the lungs where oxygen has come in, and the oxygen is going to go into the blood, and the CO2 will come out, and you'll breathe that out. And we'll continue our pathway here, and the blood comes out oxygenated now because it got blood from the lungs. Now the blood will return to the heart, but this time to the left side. And then the heart will squeeze that oxygenated blood out, high pressure. And that blood's going to travel throughout different parts of the body, like the head, the liver, the gut, the lower parts of the body. And as it goes through those capillaries in the head, the liver, the gut, the rest of the body, you'll notice that the blood becomes blue again. And that's because the blood delivered the oxygen it got from the lungs to those parts of the body, but it also picked up CO2 from those parts of the body and is going to bring it back to the lungs to breathe out. But it comes back to the right side of the heart and then is squeezed out again to the lungs to get rid of the CO2, get oxygen, and then go back to the left side of the heart to be squeezed out again to go throughout all parts of the body to deliver the oxygen to those cells so they can do cellular respiration. And this is a cycle. It happens over and over and over and over and over again. So we saw the heart, we saw the lung, the respiratory system connected to the circulatory system. We saw blood vessels like arteries and veins coming back to the heart, and capillaries where that exchange is mostly happening. All that to explain this process. So you should know how to explain this figure and how to label it and how to explain that flow of blood, oxygen, and CO2 throughout using this. We're going to go on the next slide and take a look at a few more details of the heart itself, and then go back and re-explain that picture using some of these components here, using these terms. So this is the heart cut open. You'll see there's a right side and a left side. Both sides have rooms in them. There's a top room called an atrium here, and an atrium there, and a bottom room called a ventricle here and here. The right room, the right top room is called the right atrium, and the bottom room is called the right ventricle. There's a left atrium on the left side at the top, and a left ventricle on the left side at the bottom. So the deoxygenated blood is brought to the right side of the heart through the vena cavas. There's a superior one, and there's an inferior one. Okay, the superior brings the blood from the upper parts of the body, and the inferior meaning below, from the lower parts of the body. And they enter the right atrium first. Then they go into the right ventricle. Then the heart squeezes, and the blood leaves and goes through a special artery called the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery is what delivers that deoxygenated blood to the lung. So if we go back here, this is your pulmonary artery. This your right atrium, right ventricle, pulmonary artery, delivering that deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Now, once the blood has reached the lungs and got its oxygen, it returns to the left side of the heart through the pulmonary vein, right? Artery was away, vein is towards. So this pulmonary vein, sort of behind the heart here, returns the oxygenated blood to the left atrium. Then from the left atrium, we go to the left ventricle. So here's the blood returning using the pulmonary vein to the right atrium, and then to the left atrium, and then to the left ventricle. And then the heart's going to squeeze again, and this time the oxygenated blood is going to go out the largest artery in the body, called the aorta. And from the aorta, it gets essentially distributed and travels to different parts of the body, and they lead into other arteries, basically. So if we go back here, this is the aorta here, leading the blood to other parts of the body, and then there's different arteries that go to different parts of the body from there. And so that's basically the flow, by focusing more on the what the parts of the heart are called. So we have the atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle, pulmonary artery here, and then pulmonary vein here, and then the aorta over here, and the vena cavas that bring the deoxygenated blood to the right side of the heart. And here we have a thinking question: which chamber is more muscular, the left ventricle or right ventricle, and why? So think about that, pause the video, and come up with an answer for why. And you can probably see in the picture the left ventricle looks thicker, and that makes sense because it has to pump the blood all over the body as opposed to just to the lungs. Another important facet or part of the heart are the valves. So here there's different types of valves. You don't have to know the specific names, but these are little flaps of tissue that control the blood flow. So when blood goes in here, it can't go backwards because the valve will close. When valve goes here, it won't go backwards because the valve will close. So it prevents the mixing of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood together and allows the flow to be more smooth throughout. Sometimes people have to get valve replacements because the valves don't shut properly, and that can be an issue with your heart in the long run because it'll work too hard and it'll damage the cells. As we already mentioned in the previous lesson and also in a few slides ago, oxygenated blood is red, and deoxygenated blood is red as well. Oxygenated blood is blood with a lot of oxygen. Deoxygenated blood is blood that does not have as much oxygen. In textbooks it's blue, but it's actually still just red. Humans don't have blue blood. This here is restricted right now, but it's a video about heart conditions, so you can watch that when you sign into your YouTube. You can see about, you can learn about different diseases of the circulatory system and heart diseases, which are important to know. You'll also have an opportunity to learn about that with some more research later on. This here is a video about heart attacks, so you can watch that to learn a bit more about that heart disorder, what a heart attack is, because it is a common thing that you'll often hear. You'll hear it in expressions, you'll hear about it on TV, in stories, so it is good to know about it and how it relates to the circulatory system. And then we have another video about a stroke, so please watch this video here. Make a note about what a stroke is and understand how it relates to the circulatory system, also to the nervous system, including your brain. To consolidate, don't forget there is a recap video that you can watch over here. And if you are summarizing your lab notebook, depending on your teacher instructions, these are some points that you can think about in order to summarize the lesson on the circulatory system.